Welcome back to Capitol Tonight. Everyone agrees that the state is in dire fiscal trouble, so any talk of raises for state workers has become hard to swallow for most New Yorkers. But despite the difficult climate for many criminal justice advocates, they're continuing to advocate for calls for pay raises for state judges. They argue if they don't increase salaries, the most talented legal minds will not be inclined to serve on the bench. And if they let the situation continue much longer, some New Yorkers may not get fair trials. Late last year, the Senate and Assembly agreed to form a committee to explore the idea of increasing judges' pay. But many of the state's sitting judges say they don't have much confidence that this committee. In fact, a recent survey found nearly 80% of them said they don't think the commission was the best outcome that realistically could have been achieved. My next guest was one of our developers of this survey. He's an Albany family court judge, Dennis Duggan. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Nice to be here.
And Judge, give us a little bit of background in terms of this situation. Judges haven't gotten a pay raise in New York State since 1999.
Yeah. Well, the background's even worse. For the last 100 years, judicial salaries in New York State and pretty much across America have been declining. Judges have gone for long periods of time between raises, and that's been the practice in New York. I've been on the bench for 17 years, and I've had 2 raises. We've gone 12 years since the last raise, and it's all because of politics of the legislature tying their raises into ours, and our Court of Appeals has ruled that they violated the Constitution by doing that because it violates the independence of the judiciary.
Well, you talk about the Court of Appeals. Some judges were angry enough to sue over this issue.
Yeah, there's 3 lawsuits that are still pending at various spots in the court system. There's good prospects that they could ultimately be successful because they're all working off of the Court of Appeals decision that said this was a constitutional violation.
Talk about that Court of Appeals decision a little bit.
Well, it started several years ago, went through all of the court systems, but it came to the point, and the court said the legislature has to independently evaluate judicial raises on the merits, and they can't hold us hostage to their raises, and that's exactly what they did. And so that was a violation of the judiciary's independence as an independent branch of government, and it was as simple as that.
Well, we talked in the intro a little bit about how this is a little hard to swallow for some New Yorkers, especially when you look at judges' salaries, almost $140,000 a year. So to try and explain why you deserve a raise.
Well, that is because most people, obviously, they don't earn that much. And by the way, there's about 25 different pay rates for judges. We sit in nine separate courts. We're elected, we're appointed, different rules, different terms of office, different qualifications. So not all of us. I don't make near 140,000. But that is a problem. So there's 2 questions. Do judges deserve a raise, and can we afford it? I think there's no question about that we deserve a raise. Over the last 12 years, 200,000 state employees received regular raises totaling 40% or more. And so no one would have a policy that says 200,000 state employees get raises, judges don't.
Right.
No one would have. As a matter of fact, 600,000 other state and local government workers got similar raises. Judges didn't. Nobody would have that as a conscious policy. Everybody got raises across America pretty much over the last decade that kept them near the rate of inflation. Welfare, people on welfare got raises, unemployment got raises, people on Social Security got raises, people on retirement got raises. The only single working group in the entire United States of America in the last 12 years that didn't get a raise were New York State judges. So we do deserve a raise. As to how much can they afford it, we know times are tight, but there are ways to do this. But what most people don't know is that for every single year since 2005, the legislature approved raises in the budget and raised that money in the tax levy. So they took that money from the taxpayers for judicial raises from 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, and there's money in this year's budget that was approved for judicial raises. And the legislature has played politics and said, well, we raised this money from the citizens to pay your raises, but we're just not going to disperse it.
So where's that money going?
Well, who knows? It goes into the gulag of state government of where is this money? We believe that there is money that can be allocated, but there's another way to look at this. Government has core functions to do. You know, we have to plow roads, we have to issue driver's licenses, we have to guard prisons, and we have to run courts. You know, and so our view is that before, you know, you have to pay the employees a fair wage for those core services before you start spending money on a lot of other things. And God knows we spend a lot of money on a lot of other things. And we're saying that the judiciary is one of the core services. You have to have good courts, efficient courts, and you have to pay people a fair wage that keeps up with inflation.
Well, certainly many of your co-judges agree with you. You were one of the people who helped put together a survey that took a look at this issue, whether or not the committee is going to do anything, whether they're pleased with the outcome. And the numbers are pretty staggering. 95% of the judges not pleased with this outcome of the committee that would review and decide whether or not you deserve raises.
Yeah. A lot of people think we have all this power and prestige. The truth is we have virtually no say in the wages or benefits we get. The union contracts, for example, that cover 200,000 other state employees are filled with all kinds of benefits that judges don't receive. And so we're all separated. We're in 62 counties. We're all separated in different courthouses with 2 judges here and a judge here. So we don't have an effective voice. So in this survey, we tried to get, for the first time, what are all these 1,200 judges around the state thinking? And they overwhelmingly are of the opinion that we need to have a single unified organization to speak for us and to negotiate. And also that this commission, this is fine for people at 2012 and beyond, but it doesn't do anything for all of the judges that have invested a career. They've invested essentially the best working years, the most productive working years of their life, and during that time, for 12 years, didn't get a raise. Many of these judges have retired now. Some of them have died, and they and their spouses will never benefit because unless there's something that can be done to get some retroactive money.
Well, let me ask you another question about this survey, because you talk about the unions and how they have all of these benefits, but you can also say that the unions pound the pavement. They're out there protesting, they're out there with signs, they're very vocal. About half of these judges say they wouldn't be willing to do that. They want to maybe sit back, they don't want to be seen out protesting with signs.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me just say, no judge would go on strike. No judge would have a slowdown because, aside from just we're dedicated to our job, we all swore an oath of office to the Constitution to uphold the laws. But no employee in New York State is permitted to strike, and slowdowns are also considered to be a strike. But there's many other things we can do, and there's not pickets 24/7 all the time for all of the unions. And there's a lot of professional unions. There's doctors that are unionized in the state, university professors, airline pilots. There's administrative law judges in New York City that are unionized. But it's the fact that if you have 1,200 voices all speaking, the same thing with the one unified organization, that's what gives you the power to be heard, really.
So you certainly have 2 different avenues you can go up at this point. You have the avenue of the lawsuits and then the avenue of the union. Which do you think is going to be more productive?
Well, the lawsuits have always been a long shot, but in the beginning when they were started, nobody gave them any chance. And judges, we don't want to get our raises through lawsuits. That's not right. That's not the democratic way to do it. It's not a productive way to do it. We just want to be treated fairly, like 200,000 of our co-workers who work for the state of New York are treated.
So if I could ask you one last question. If you were to get the raises, what's the pay rate that you want to see increased?
Well, the pay rate that was in effect for decades was parity with federal district judges for the Supreme Court judges. Right now they're at 174, and there has been a realistic plan that's been offered by the court system where, like, a county judge would make 95% of that, and a city judge would make 90%, and a village judge 85%. And that all makes sense. That was the benchmark. Supreme Court judges in New York State for years were paid the same as federal district court judges. Or anybody can do the numbers with the cost of living, and we'd be happy to take the same raises that CSEA got. We'd love to get those raises.
All right, Judge, thank you so much for your time. A lot of wheels in motion with this issue, so I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more about it coming up.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You do